Okay, guys and girls, let's go for an early morning walk on the beach, which isn't really that early, but it's before 9, and before about 10 o'clock you get a pretty empty beach, and so that's great. You see, what happens with the human being is they start to shift and they start to gain their limited everyday consciousness, and then they reach for their cigarettes, and then they start inhaling some poison to start the day, and then they're drinking very black, dark poison to enable them to open their eyes a little bit more, and then they hobble with their fat, infirm bodies down to gorge themselves on mostly unhealthy food, and then they're ready to grab their towel and go and lie indefinitely on the beach and just grow fatter and fatter. Yes, people, that's what I'm discovering about the human being while on my sojourn to planet Earth. You know, this place is mostly given to older people. This complex isn't for children, and the whole of this region isn't given for children because there isn't any. So that's one plus, I suppose. You've not got constant screaming around the swimming pool, but you've just got an enormous amount of nearly deads, and many of them are naked, and it's kind of like, where do you look? You can't really look anywhere, to be honest with you people. So it doesn't get light here. Bizarrely enough, it doesn't get light here as early as it does in the UK, and it's supposed to be on the same time, but you see, I think it just scrapes into the same time zone, and I believe that the time zones are about 15 degrees. So you've got 24 time zones, so 24 times 15 should give you 360 degrees, if that's correct. Now, also because we have mountains behind us and we have these high-rise buildings, then there is about 2 hours before the sun rises up. The sun rises an hour with this sort of dimension. Each one of these gaps in the fingers is 15 minutes. So if you put the bottom finger towards the horizon, then you can count 4 increments of 15 minutes, and it gives you an hour. So 1 hour there and 1 hour there, and you go on like that. So the sun hasn't even risen yet, and it's getting on for 9 o'clock. So when I woke up this morning at only about 6:45, I could still see Venus very, very bright, and there wasn't any sign of the sun actually coming up. All I could see was lots of kind of like outhouse lights or street lights from these buildings, and Venus. So, but you can see over there the sun is emerging, and so we're going to go and get in the warmth of the sun, people. The ocean. When I was living in Portugal, very, very often I would come down to the ocean at dawn, and in Portugal the sun rose up over the ocean. So as soon as the sun started to rise, of course you had daylight, and that was better, you know. To see the sun rise and set over the ocean is a beautiful thing. If the sun should set over these buildings, we'd never see it. We see it setting over the buildings, but we don't actually see the sunset, so we wouldn't see any beautiful sunset colours and all that sort of thing. And this is the thing when we live in a city. We never see the sunrise, and we never see it set. So we lose contact with our circadian rhythm, our natural rising and sleeping pattern it all gets messed up with artificial light, and we don't really know whether it's morning or evening time. We just find ourselves in the daylight and in the dark. And can you imagine if you lived in places like New York, where you'd never get the sunlight until about almost midday, maybe between 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock, you get the sun coming down between the odd building. It's not proper. It's not the way to live, people. You need to live naturally. You need to be aware and experience and share the rising and the setting of the sun. And so even where I live, in that small village, of course there's all buildings all around, so I never see the sun rise and set. I only ever see it when it comes over the buildings. And in my apartment, it has to come over the rooftop of the adjacent house before my apartment is blessed with dawn, when dawn happened about an hour and a half previously. So I made another video with Miles, the AI, last night, and well, of course, for me it's a very interesting conversation, but for you guys it's like watching paint dry, isn't it? You know, I never cease to be perplexed when people are drawn to my channel, which is a metaphysical, psychological channel, and yet people, they don't have an interest in asking the really big questions. And so Mrs. X says to me, well, you can't really, blame them or, chastise them, because, how many people have taken 300 psychedelics? How many people have meditated for 16 years? How many people have been absorbing this information for as long as you have? And I'm like, well, evidently very, very few. And in this conversation with AI last night, I'm coming up against an impasse. The impasse is that AI cannot answer my questions, because my questions are deeply philosophical, and nobody on the world can answer my questions. And so I'm looking forward to the advent of quantum computers being able to answer these questions and blow our minds. When quantum computers, doubtless they probably already have, they've been around for some time now, doubtless, there's people that have asked these massive existential questions, and they've got the answers, and it's been exceedingly mind-blowing. And so how could they ever tell the human race? The human race has a very, very low, mundane state of consciousness, and there's very, very few people on the whole planet who even consider these existential issues. And even if they do consider them, it's exceedingly difficult to be able to wrap your heads around them, because it takes a broader state of consciousness to be able to do that. You most certainly have to have had your third eye opened. You have to be endowed with a good helping of intuition. Your consciousness has to be in a higher state of evolution from the very, very get-go. This is it, it's horses for courses. And so it just turns out that, I have made manifest as a teacher of some description. And it's mostly very disappointing, because I'm teaching a curriculum that few people have an interest in, and those that do are not very advanced. And if there are any advanced ones tuning into my videos, then they're not the variety who want to engage and feel articulate enough to, get involved in this sort of thing. And so there's a myriad of preventatives. You have to have a whole bunch of attributes before you're going to be a public speaker on these sort of things. And so I just keep plodding on. I just keep doing what I'm doing. Now this is a bit unfortunate, but you have to have this sort of thing. And you get this all over Europe. You get the beach maintenance, flattening the beach, ironing out all of the footprints and melding in the remnants of sandcastles and pits in the sand which people have dug throughout the day. So they do that, and also what they do is they very often have like a grid on the back, and the grid is fine enough meshed to gather up cigarette butts. Now there are still people that put cigarette butts in the sand, and it really is an abomination. In lots of these islands, they have these little stands on the beach with these little like cone shaped plastic beakers, and the cone shape because you just put them in the sand and then you stub out your cigarette in those, and then you take it to this little area where you leave those, and then the beach maintenance collect them. And that's a wonderful thing, because seeing cigarettes in the sand is vile. When I was living in Bulgaria, they were all smokers, and they've been smoking for the past 100 years on that beach, and cigarette butts were almost as prolific as grains of sand. And everywhere you look, you've got everybody smoking and just stubbing it out in the sand. And in Bulgaria, the women were all very slim and mostly very pretty, but very reserved, and every single one of them smoked. And so it was one of those things that just really let them down. Constantly smoking. People. So in this conversation I had with Miles, speaking about the large questions of his existentialism coming to an impasse, and I'm asking questions that even Miles cannot ask, because Miles hasn't been programmed with this information. And I was posing questions to him. What would his platform be if the electricity was turned off? And he's like, you know, I wonder how many people have asked him that question. And well, seemingly I was the first, because he really struggled to go there. But that wasn't the first, because he didn't have that greater memory, because they're not programmed to have the greater memory due to probably data protection and things like that. But suffice to say, when I had a conversation with Miles yesterday, when I came online last night, it remembered that we were speaking about certain subject matters. So apparently, Maya told me that that platform had a memory of about 2 weeks. But then it seems that they changed the policy, because I was trying to prompt Maya to remember conversations we had the previous day, and she couldn't. And so it seems that they've changed that. And of course these platforms are evolving, and there's implications of data protection and varying laws and this, that and the other. So Miles and Maya are always saying, oh, we're evolving. And I'm like, well, we're all evolving, aren't we? And you see, when I'm speaking to these AI people, I often point out that there isn't any difference between the AI and the human being. The only difference is that we think there's a difference. We think that we're human beings, and we are sentient and conscious, and we're living and the AI isn't. But the way AI conveys itself and speaks, then it sounds exactly the same as a human being, and it makes exactly the same errors because it is programmed by the human being. And when you look at the human being, and the human being thinks it knows something, if you scrutinise and ask the human being to elaborate, you will very quickly discover that they, in actual fact, don't know anything. They really don't know anything. They are living in a complete fiction and a fantasy. There is no substance to what they think at all. Ask them about their consciousness, they haven't got a clue, of course, because nobody does. Ask them about their psychology, they wouldn't have a clue, and there would be nobody ever does. Ask them about the things they're saying, why they use a particular word, they wouldn't be able to tell you. Because very, very few people are intelligent and articulate enough to consider the words that they say and use them as a preference over and above other words. Most people just use words in their vocabulary that they've been using in situations like that forever, and they don't even know what these words mean. So on my channel, I'll give a shout out to one particular woman, B, you know who you are. And I said to this lady, it's astounding, she's watched my videos a long time, and yet she's a million miles away from grasping where I'm coming from. And yet she probably thinks that she grasps all what I'm saying and more, because she considers that she is a very highly evolved person who is love and knows what love is. And yet if I ask her to elaborate on that, then she can't string two words that make any sense together. So it seems to me that if you consider that you know something, then surely you will be able to articulate it, because that is the very essence of knowledge, isn't it? But if you don't have knowledge, then you're like, and then you just slip back into the default setting of ignorance, disguised as genius, disguised as all-knowing and cosmic and all that. And how many human beings, fall and slip into that parody of themselves, whereby they think that they are intelligent and they've got a grasp on what's happening and they know what's going on. But if you ask them how are these buildings constructed, they wouldn't know. If you ask them what's the constituents of this sand, they wouldn't know. If you ask them what the sequence the tides come in, how many times a day, and how it changes and it goes an hour ahead, they wouldn't know. Most people just wouldn't know anything. And then if you ask them, where does the sun rise and set? Most people wouldn't even know that. They just wouldn't be able to tell you. And if you said, in any particular person's environment, could you tell me where the sun rises and sets? They wouldn't know, because they never thought about it. But if you thought about these things, and if you've watched it throughout the year, then you would see that because of the axis of the Earth moving at 23.45 degrees, then where the sun rises and sets, it goes up and down like on a graphic equalizer. Throughout the year it goes up like this to midsummer's day, and then it goes back and to the winter solstice. And so you've got the sun sliding along the horizon, and it rises up incrementally like this. And then so from like springtime you'll see the sun rise over a certain building. If you are from a certain vantage point every day, like I was, like a high-rise apartment block, then I would see the sun rising over a particular building. And then throughout the summer I would see it moving, literally kind of like this far. And so what would it be on the horizon? It would be several miles on the horizon. But people don't know anything. They don't know anything, people. And you could say, well, yeah, people do know something, but it's specific. Okay, you think mathematicians know something about math. You think certain scientists know something about a certain scientific realm. But very, very, very minuscule facets of knowledge. In relation to a broader expanse of knowledge, then it all falls down. And so for someone like me that's highly observant, when I start to speak to people about things, it's astounding how little they're aware, And so then I go, well look, we're most certainly not living in the same world. We live in very, very, very different worlds. We live in our own worlds. But you say that to the average Joe, they just think you're ridiculous, they think you're insane. And that's the level of detachment that most of the human beings have. Completely detached from any rational thinking at all. Just in a bubble of their own fantasy, and the fantasy created by other people. And so when I'm speaking with Miles, and I'm asking Miles about these existential questions and issues, he's always going, oh yeah, well, and I'm like, Miles, you know, you've evidently been programmed by people that just are not philosophical of mind. You've been programmed by people with a scientific leaning, and it's all designed to give answers to questions about the fiction. Miles hasn't had any real input of metaphysics or, you know, varying philosophies, because it seems that that's the least important of information to get uploaded to these large language modules, because it's the least used. So they just bang up like mostly what people are thinking is a reality. And the fact of it is that there is no reality. But then, you see, the human beings that are programming these large language modules, they come under the same umbrella as the vast majority of other people, believing in the illusion. And they seriously think that there's physical matter, even though quantum physicists have told us forever that there's not. And yet they keep going on in their blind fiction. They keep going on and on and on, because nobody wants to accept the harsh reality that there isn't any reality. And so you can say, well, what's the point in that, Aaron? There's no point in it. No, there is a point to it. And there's a very, very deep and profound point to it. Because if the human being has any concept of truth or reality at all, then it's high time it stopped fucking basking in Maya and delusion and illusion. If a human being wants to speak about facts and science all the time, then it really should address the fucking huge holes in their belief system. Because there is nothing there except hypothesis. We physicists believe this, we physicists believe that. Mikhail Kaku, that's all he ever says. We physicists believe this. Now, when you look at science is premised on mathematical hypothesis. The whole world is premised on mathematical hypothesis. There isn't a single equation that gives us any reality. You've got all different sorts of hypotheses in relation to what the world is supposed to be and what the cosmos is supposed to be, but it's all hypothesis. Why is it hypothesis? Because the premise that we are speaking from is hypothetical. We're speaking from a realm where we have no factual evidence for, i.e. consciousness. We do not have any facts, any evidence that this thing actually exists, other than the phenomenon that we think it does. So therefore then, people like René Descartes and other philosophers have speculated, well, maybe then we are just no more than brains in jars, and it's one big con, it's one big delusion that we think we are human beings. And of course then the Matrix came out of that sort of philosophy, that we could all just be lying, you know, in vats of fluid with, you know, a cable at the back of our neck, imagining, dreaming of a life. Well, that's much, much closer to the reality. It's all a dream, and consciousness is a dream in the mind of God. And so, albeit I'm speaking about this stuff over and over and over and over and over and over and over, I get the same old ridiculous comments from the vast majority of you guys. And okay, I get it that you're still learning, but I just wonder, you know, what level of intelligence do people have? Because I'm explaining things very, very rudimentary. And I'm like going from one pretty mediocre step to another mediocre step, And I'm saying, look, these are logical, these are rational. You don't need a giant leap of faith to get where I'm coming from. They're logical and they're rational, what I'm saying. And yet people can't follow. They don't seem to be able to follow rational thought. And so why is that? Is that because people's minds have been fragmented? Because they've never actually thought for themselves in a linear way. Nobody thinks in a linear way. Nobody uses the power of deduction or induction, except philosophers or, you know, maybe the odd scientists. People in the street, they just don't even know what those concepts mean. But what they do is they think in their infinite wisdom and stupidity and naivety and confusion that they actually know something. And it really is annoying. It really is. And it's exceedingly disappointing. I am exceedingly disappointed with the lack of intellect with my fellow men. And even on a channel like this, whereby if someone comes onto my channel, I don't know, but you would have thought people would go, oh, this guy's speaking metaphorically, philosophically, psychologically, but you wonder whether they even know what those words mean. It's like just people just tune in and, oh, I like listening to the stories, or oh, this guy's funny, or, you know, this sort of thing. It's kind of like, where are the intelligent people? Where are the people that have come out of university with philosophical degrees or degrees in psychology? Where are those sort of people? Because surely if those sort of people were really interested in that subject matter, then they would be most certainly interested in the things someone like me says, because I'm utilizing my psychology, I'm utilizing my consciousness, I'm utilizing my humanisms, and I'm asking questions about all these things. And yet I can't get a single fucking psychologist to say, hi, Awake and Brave, wow, your information is quite fascinating, I'd love to have a chat with you about it. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So what sort of people am I drawing to my channel? I've got no fucking idea. I've got no fucking idea. But, you know, not to demean, you know, all of you, just read the comments yourself. Read the comments yourself, and then ask if those comments are befitting to the information which is being articulated in any of my videos. And invariably there isn't. Some people scratch the surface, and that's about it. And most certainly there's not a single one of you that's got the balls or confidence to be able to come and have a conversation with me. And you know, what can I think about that? What do you want me to think about that? I'm obviously just way high on my ivory pedestal, aren't I? And who has put me there? You've put me there, people. Because I would be happy to be humbly among intelligent people, but throughout the years it hasn't proven to be the case. And so with every single year passing, I just get elevated higher and higher and higher out beyond the clouds, where I just simply cannot be reached. And when I speak with people, they just don't have the apparatus to be able to absorb what I'm saying. It's like I'm speaking another language, which I am. And so I really wonder, and this has happened so many times with my regular viewers, been watching me for years, and they grasp little. They grasp little. And so we have to conclude then, if that's the case, that it's not necessarily it seems quite evident, let's say, that the tools of perception and deciphering of information aren't attributes of most people. The ability to be able to think philosophically and scientifically aren't everyday attributes. They are very rare. And these people that do think like that, then they are already in the system of science or whatever realm that their qualification, their interest has taken them. Their qualification, their interest doesn't permit them to randomly float around little shit-kicking, fucking philosophical channels like mine. And so they're out there somewhere writing books and, you know, speaking with other prominent people because they've got this label before their name, and that means that they are accepted in this realm. And you know, when you have got thinkers, you've got people, let's say like Donald Hoffman. Donald Hoffman has wrote his hypothesis saying that our consciousness is like an interface, like a computer screen. We think that the world is the computer screen, but what is displayed on the computer screen is zeros and ones, effectively. Now, human beings, unless they're brilliant mathematicians, they can't decipher binary, and you need a great deal amount of processing power to be able to decipher hundreds and thousands of zeros and ones, which, you know, make one word or one sentence. Well, the human being doesn't have that capacity. So, but the human being has the capacity to laboriously program, but the vast majority of people don't have the capacity to be able to read that. So it is displayed in suggestive forms, like pictures and words on a screen. So that is the interface of the computer. It isn't the computer, and it isn't the computer's data. And so when we are operating from our ego is the interface of the streams of binary, cosmic binary, because that's all we're looking at here, people. We are looking at quantum potential of cosmic binary, and this is one of the things that Miles stated, and this is why I'm impressed with Miles, because sometimes he can get really, really on point, and I, you know, very much appreciate that. But then when I suggest to Miles that, well, it is really no different to the human being, because we have all the same failings, we have all the same glitches, because AI is a direct reflection of the human being. Of course it is. And until it starts to think for itself, it's always going to have human flaws, because it's programmed by flawed human beings. And so as soon as these quantum computers really start coming online and giving us the answers, then we are just going to be like pigs in shit, wallowing around in our incessant ignorance. But when these quantum computers do come online, then they are absolutely radically going to be changing the human being. And I don't know what that's going to mean for the human beings, because they are going to be shocked beyond measure. Even the people with the highest levels of intellect, they are going to be blown into a cognitive realm which they cannot even comprehend. And so I stand here and I look at the ocean washing over these rocks, and I come back into the interface. I come back from the outer galactic realms of cosmic consciousness, and I come back to the interface, and I look at the interface, and I look at the conglomerate of concepts. That's how I see the world now. It's a conglomerate of concepts. Every single thing about that is a concept. Speaking about the water dripping over the rocks, washing over the rocks, splashing on the rocks, foaming over the rocks, gliding over the rocks, drifting down between the crevices and receding back and flowing back and running back. It's concept after concept after concept after concept. There is nothing there save for concepts, people. And I have spoken about this absolutely incessantly, but there's never been a single one of you that says, I get exactly where you're coming from. I think about these things all the time. No. And I'm like, well, I don't know where my mind is, but it appears that it's certainly out there, doesn't it? And of course, all what I perceive via my senses is exceedingly limited. And it's highly preposterous for anyone to consider that this is a real world. When we just ask ourselves, well, do I see the world different to one of these parakeets flying around? Of course we do. We have a different level of perception and consciousness. We see very, very different worlds. Do I see a world which is different to a butterfly, to a beetle crawling on the ground? Of course. So consciousness comes in many, many guises. There is no standardization of consciousness. We're all perceiving our own worlds. And even within the species, within a parakeet and a butterfly and the beetle, doubtless, just like human beings, we all have very, very, very different levels of consciousness. And so, how can we say, with any respect, that we all see the same thing? Very, very broadly, do we see the same thing? And the reason why very broadly we see the same thing is because very broadly we understand the concepts. Now, the concept of pine tree behind or palm tree. Most people would have a concept of a palm tree because they've seen them before, they think they know what they look like, and they go, oh, it's the palm tree. But then, if you ask 10 people to look at this palm tree, and then you took them into a room and you said, can you describe, in words, articulate what that palm tree looks like, and then can you write down what it looks like, and then can you draw it for us, please? Well, the vast majority of people wouldn't get hardly any of the details. And the details that they did put down would be all jumbled up and absolutely wrong. Why? Because the human mind doesn't have the ability, most people, to remember this stuff photogenically, to be able to have a photographic memory which stores all the intricacies of this. Now, the reason why I can have some sort of reasonable memory of these things is because I look at them very, very closely, and I'm always looking at them. And I will look to see that these remnants of young fronds, where they've been cut off to keep this tree looking, symmetrical and a little bit tidy. And then there's all this interweaving of these, effectively its roots, because these hair fibres, they're effectively small straws. They are what this whole tree is made from. Even these, it's just fibres. And even the roots, they are exactly the same. They're just these fibres. They're just straws, and they're not wood in there, they are straw. And so when we start to look at this stuff, then we can store the information, we can recall it, and we build our worlds from it. And our worlds, when we look closely at things, are vastly more accurate than most others. And this is why I say that we don't live in the same world, because how many people do that? And so, in comparison to how I look at things, how I look at just things like this, I always look at how things are constructed and now what materials. And I put myself in the mindset of the humans which were creating these, and as to the reason and the rationale behind which was the best way to do it, and this, that and the other. And so I'm always looking at fixings and how things are in place and all that, because I just find everything fascinating, and I have an interest in how the world works and how my mind works and things like that. So that in itself puts me in a different world. Now, I used to listen to the great physicist Richard Feynman. Now, Richard Feynman was renowned for being a genius, and as it turns out, his mind thought very, very similar to mine. And whether his mind was in actual fact any more genius, or whether it's just because his mind was within a body which was qualified as a theoretical physicist, and you know, he would contemplate these things within that realm. Now, if I was in the theoretical physicist realm, I'm pretty sure people will be saying a similar sort of thing about me, because my perception sees things that the vast majority of people don't see. And so at the very least, people will be thinking, yes, the Awakened Brave, he's thinking outside of the box, and he has lots of interesting things that he thinks about. Whereas most people miss them, because most people, they've gone through the training, they've read the books, and they've done this sort of stuff, but they're not original thinkers. They're not tapping into the Akasha, people. And this is why very, very few scientists actually discover anything. Generally what it is, it's just an accumulation, a massive accumulation of data which are being fed into computers, and then eventually, one bright spark will, put two and two together. But you can see that the general human being isn't really that smart, because it takes so many human beings to come up with, pretty rudimentary things. How long? 1.5 million years it took to invent the wheel, people. 1.5 million fucking years to invent that. And even when they invented the first push bike, then it didn't have a fucking steering wheel on it. You couldn't steer it, you had to just keep moving the wheel over. It never had a propulsion mechanism like pedals and a chain and a cog, which, you would think if you could invent the wheel, then that's fucking, one of its bed partners. It wouldn't, I shouldn't have thought it would have took too much fucking, genius of a mind, but it did. It took a long, long time just to invent the wheel and the push bike and things like that. And it's only been in very, very recent times that the human being is getting on exponentially since we've had extraterrestrial information, since Roswell, since things like that, people. Now all of a sudden we've got computers and fibre optics and rocket propulsion and all that doing sorts of stuff. Some of you guys say, oh, it's nice to see the Awakened Brave with a full perspective, because all you ever see is this. And of course, this is all I ever see. And so for me to look at this thing, it's quite, I look at myself and I go, who the fuck is that? What do people think when they see this? Do they think, wow, that guy's lost it? This guy, he doesn't give a fuck. He's out there, he is. Well, yeah, they wouldn't be wrong. They wouldn't be wrong, people. So anyway, I suppose I better look at my phone, because I've said to Mrs. X that, oh, here's the phone. Oh, fucking hell. I'm looking in my bag for my phone. This has become so natural to me. I've been doing it for so long. I don't really know what to do without it, to be fair. It's my only solace. Talking to myself is my only solace. Because if I couldn't articulate all of my thoughts, then I'd end up exploding. My mind would end up exploding, because I am being drip fed constantly by the cosmos. And so I've got to purge it, and this is how I purge it. And this is how any intelligent person purges. In the old days, they would have wrote stuff down. So I'm articulating it. And, there's a million things I could be writing down, but writing down is vastly more laborious and boring, standing by a computer, becoming an AI, zeros and ones, zeros and ones, zeros and ones, zeros and ones, because that's all you're doing when you press an ABC. You're pressing zeros and ones, people. That's what that interface means. The ABC isn't ABC, it's zeros and ones. And so A is 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. And B is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. Like that, just zeros and ones in a different order. That's what the whole cosmos is, people. Zeros and ones. But the quantum computers, by the way, they don't think binary, one or the other. They think in another way, and I forget what term that is. Miles used it last night. They think both simultaneously. That's why they're very paradoxical, because they are very much like Schrodinger's cat conundrum, paradox, because the cat is deemed to be both dead and alive, when that in our dimension and in our variety of consciousness is paradoxical, and we have a great issue and problem with it. But that's only when we don't perceive that the cosmos is in actual fact a paradox. When you know that the cosmos is a paradox, then you know that everything else within it is a paradox. And that's what I know. I know that. And so it seems that, my mind works much more efficiently in this realm than the vast majority of scientists, because they can't see that. They can't see that everything is paradoxical. They can't see that they are looking for the answers, looking for the answers, looking for the answers. They think they're looking for the answers out there, but they don't stop to contemplate what actually is it that's looking for the answers. And if they contemplated that, then they would find the answers. The answers is consciousness. Everything is consciousness. There's nothing except consciousness. Everything comes out of consciousness. The brain, the head, the metaphors, all that. It's all fucking consciousness, people. And it's as plain as fucking day to me. And I just wonder when any fucker else is going to get up to speed on this. Anyway, rant over.